This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Delvista Road Maintenance meeting. It is now 7:01 p.m. and we officially have a quorum to declare the meeting start. My name is Paul Warren. I am the current president and director for the Delvista Road Maintenance meeting. We also have for a quorum director Louise Rotvik. If anyone doesn't know who Louise is, there you go. She's right in the center of the action. And then we also have Director Regina, which I believe she's joining us via telephone. Regina?
That is correct, Paul. Thank you.
Were we privileged to have Vice President Carl Berkins to join us? Was he able to join us today? Okay, perhaps later on.
Last I heard, he was.
Okay. Yes, I thought that was my expectation too, that he was going to join us. So typically before I start my meetings, I like to go over some rules and some expectations. Please make sure that you have your phones on mute, and let's please have some decorum and some respect for each person. If someone is talking, let's try our best to allow the other persons to talk. Preferably, I prefer not to turn on the mute by muting everyone, because I find that it actually tends to interfere with having a conversation. And I really believe conversations, it's a two-way conversation, both from us, the board, and also from you, the residents. So I prefer not to do that unless the meeting goes out of control, which we will. I will try my best as the presiding officer for this meeting to actually keep the meeting on track. Again, my name is Paul Warren, and to further clarify the expectation, because sometimes there's a bit of a confusion as to what Delvista Road Maintenance is, along with Delvista Towers. As a reminder, the Delvista Road Maintenance is the association that covers the common areas between the towers and the townhouses. Specifically for this meeting, we are referring to the gate entrance, the security, which covers the entrance from the security gate along that stretch of road that drives along the townhouse to where the fire hydrant is. That is the purview of Delvista Road Maintenance. It also curves around to the left when you're entering from the driveway up to the front of the towers. That's also within the purview of Delvista Road. If there are any concerns that you have which does not relate to Delvista Road Maintenance, of course, I'll be more than happy to take the message on concern and pass it on to Delvista Towers. And if it's also for the townhouse, which they have a very good system on their side also. Their communication has been very effective. I'll pass that information on. So you should have a copy of your agenda in front of you. And before I go ahead and call the meeting to order, Secretary Louise or Director Regina, is there anything else you'd like to add before I start the meeting, please?
No, thank you.
No, I'm good.
Thank you so much. Vice President Berkins? Okay. All right, not yet. Okay, so this meeting is hereby called to order. We have already established a quorum. We shall move to option number 3 on the agenda, the proof of posting.
I have it. The meeting was posted on March 5th, 2021 at 5:00 p.m.
Okay. Thank you so much, Secretary Rosnick. Okay, would you be so kind to read us the minutes from the previous meetings?
Delvista Road Maintenance Open board meeting, February 4th, 2021. A virtual go-to meeting. Paul Warren called the meeting to order at 7:06 p.m. A quorum was established. In attendance was Paul Warren, Carl Berkins, Regina Goldfein, and Louise Rudnick. An affidavit of posting was demonstrated. Paul Warren explained the meeting guidelines in regards to cell phones and requested everyone to please be nice to each other and no rudeness. Al Milian requested an explanation as to why the manager was not in attendance. No one was able to supply an answer. Louise Rudnick made a motion to approve the meeting minutes from December 16th, 2020 as presented. Carl Berkins requested the minutes be read. They were read to the attendees, and Paul Warren requested a revision on some items or corrections as to an item referring to the manager's response to a request for information and the time frame stated. After a discussion, it was determined that Paul would forward the meeting minutes to Louise for her to review and correct minutes if necessary. Paul Warren then addressed the creation of an impartial voting committee to act as inspectors at the election and read the legal rule regarding such. A discussion of the procedures ensued, and Al Milian and Johanna Brizard volunteered to be members of the committee. It was explained that there were still two separate, wow, okay, I'm just not taking it, okay. It was,
That reminds me.
yeah, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, being that there was a change of the code to enter the meeting, maybe Carl didn't get the new code.
It's very, very possible.
Because Alex didn't send it out till 6:29.
Would you be so kind to send him a text or?
I will. Let me finish reading the minutes,
Okay,
and I
thank
will.
you so much. Or anyone else?
Paul, I will go ahead and send him a text right now. Okay.
Thank you so much, Rudy. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Okay, the thought just struck me. Okay. Addressed impersonally. A motion was then made to establish the voting committee for DRM. The motion was seconded by Carl Berkins. All voted in favor. The manager was to notify the residents and request volunteers. Paul Warren then opened, actually that was Carl trying to get me.
Okay.
Paul Warren then opened a discussion regarding the gate issues. Louise read her email, which had been submitted to the board on December 17th, concerning the issues which she had addressed with staff. Comments from several residents regarding the manager not taking responsibility for supervising these issues and creating a report were expressed. Paul Warren then addressed his previous request for reconstruction of missing landscaping documents. It was discussed that this ongoing issue had been addressed by numerous emails from the previous manager as well as from the association attorneys. It was noted that the expense to reconstruct them was excessive. At this point, Paul Warren informed the board and the residents in attendance that he had been informed that the security rover was wearing a body camera. The board stated that they had no knowledge of this, and Carl Berkins would ascertain the truth of this statement first thing in the morning. Paul Warren then introduced the consideration of the design and replacement of a Delvista entrance sign. A discussion was opened as to the necessity of the expenditure at this particular time. The proposal was tabled for future reconsideration. Give me a moment. Okay. Going to page 2. Okay. The resident Al Milian requested the list of candidates running in the upcoming election. Paul Warren stated that he had this information and he proceeded to read it aloud to all attendees. Paul then stated his thanks to Louise and Regina. Louise Nick and Regina Goldfein as DRM board members for their years of service. The meeting was adjourned at 8:27 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luis, Director Luis.
Thank you.
Any comments from Director Regina or any other members?
I have a text.
No.
Did Carl get the number?
I think Udi said he was actually going to pass the information.
Carl did not respond to me. I texted him, so.
Thank you, Udi.
Okay, I got a text from him. I'm trying to sign on.
Okay. Just make sure please share with him the correct meeting ID. Thank you so much.
I will right now.
Okay. Now, while we have you have just read the minutes as only you could have read it, Luis. Again, thank you very much. We have no additional some suggestions to that, so I'll open the floor for a motion to actually approve the minutes or any correction.
It's Regina. I make a motion to approve the minutes as read by Louise Rudnick.
And Louise Rudnick seconds it.
Well, and I can also
and Paul, yes, of course.
Thank you very much. This meeting, the minutes has been approved. Again, it's an open floor. If you had questions or any comments or anything that you needed some explaining on, any member of the association, please feel free to let me know. Now, before we move on to the next thing on the agenda, the next item, I want to use the opportunity to actually welcome our property manager. We have a new property manager. For those of you who have not been advised, that we have a property manager who has many years of managing many different properties, who has the experience of what Delvista Towers requires, and in fact, he was a resident here at one point. I don't have I will let him share that if he so decides. But we have a new property manager, which so far I would like to share and comment that his performance today has been very refreshing, and I would like to actually turn the floor over to him for a few minutes so he could talk a bit about himself and actually greet the new residents. Udi, I'm thankful that you could join us. Please go ahead.
All right, thank you, Paul. So as Paul mentioned, I became the property manager a little bit less than 3 weeks ago. Also, as Paul mentioned, I've been a resident of Delvista Towers for close to 21 years. I do have experience in property management, and I actually took that position for the main reason that I believe our community needs to come together. Our community needs to join forces in order to get Delvista to where Delvista used to be. I am doing it with a vested interest as an owner, which I know there were a lot of people that questioned it and thought that this is a conflict of interest. However, I believe that that particular interest could actually serve to the benefit of the community. And as long as I'm giving the opportunity, I will do whatever I can to manage the office, manage the operation, and be as transparent as possible, because I believe this is what in the first place caused a lot of issues in our community. And I will provide the board, the existing board or boards in that manner, because we have the DERM and we do have the towers, with as much information as possible so they can make educated decisions on all their voting and decisions. And thank you for the support, and please bear with me while we go through this process. There are a lot of things to do. We do have a lot of tasks ahead, and we'll try to get to each and every one of them in due time. Thank you.
Udi, is there
Udi, may I ask a question? May I ask a question of Woody?
Please go ahead. I'm sorry.
Woody, this is Al Million.
Hey, Al.
Welcome
Yes,
aboard.
sir.
Okay, this has
Thank you,
been a
sir.
subject that's been a continuing issue there. Are you working on the northwest corner of our property regarding the refuse, the debris, including a discarded door, a stolen cart, shopping cart from Winn-Dixie, and other debris that is sitting there? It's an eyesore. It detracts from our property. Are you aware of that? And are you doing anything on that?
First time that I hear of it, Al.
I
First
happen
time
to
that I
know
hear
that
of it.
I happen to
And
know that the
I
police
will,
gave the former manager a warning about keeping stolen Winn-Dixie carts
Al,
there. Let me finish, please.
okay, I would just like to interrupt for a second. And this
But
is
don't
going
interrupt.
not
Let me
only,
finish my question. It's the first time you're aware of it, but the police has been there to the property on several occasions. There have been stolen Winn-Dixie
okay,
carts that have been there for days, and debris
okay,
and construction refuse that has been there. So you're aware of it now.
I am. However, Al, however, what I would like to try to establish moving forward, and this is something that hasn't been happening at Delvista very often, which has been very detrimental to the entire operation. I would like communication to be by email because I tend to be very attentive to emails. I jump on them right away. I go ahead and I add them to my action plan. And at this point, it becomes an accountable issue. By stopping by at the office, by calling me, or by throwing it at a meeting, it's a bit difficult to handle. So I will, and by the way, this is not going specifically for you. I was about to send an email to the entire community, but I kind of like waited only because of the way that the one of the managers in the past has started her or his way by establishing a not very communicative way with the members. So I would like to send an email to the community explaining the importance of communicating by email. This way there's a trail paper, there's a paper trail, there's a recourse, and I can immediately add it to the agenda of things that need to be done in addition to the 100 million things that we are doing in this building.
Okay, thank you, Woody. But I have communicated this not only to the former manager, but also to the board on numerous occasions. I can forward those emails or I can generate a new one. But thank you for telling me.
Al, that board that you communicate to is no longer in place, and that manager you communicate to is no longer in place. So moving forward, we have a new board, we have a new property manager, we will take action, and we will be accounted for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judge Millian, and thank you very much, Udi. And so far, if I could add my 2 cents to that, I think it's, Udi, we are very grateful that you're actually here. I mean, it's a part of the job, it's a part of the requirement. That's a good first step. And I think I'm speaking on a majority of the residents here tonight that people, the residents and the owners here, we are delighted to hear that you do want to have communication and that we do want to improve communication. So thank you very much, and kudos to that. Judge Millian, was there anything else that we had to address to that issue? Because that's on the board. It's right there on the border there, Delvista Road by the townhouses.
No, not at this time.
Thank you, Judge Millian. It's a high sewer right at the corner.
Okay, you're listening to Al Billion complain about the garbage on the northeast or northwest corner, and what's his name? Udi answered him beautifully. He said, "This is the new manager, new board. Would you send me an email, please?" Very nice. Okay, please join us. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, we're both here. Okay. Okay, bye. I'll let you know what happened. Okay, bye. Bye.
Okay, so continuing, the next thing that we have on the agenda is the DRM annual elections, and I wanted to actually give the residents some information as to how did we get to the sequence of event. As some of you may be aware that we had our annual elections that was scheduled for not December, God forbid, March the 10th, and that election has actually been canceled until further notice. Actually, and this meeting and this meeting tonight is where we will be actually, as a board and as an association, taking depending on your feedback and your input, we'll vote on the option that's most appropriate for this association. But prior to us getting to where, was there a question? Someone? Okay. Prior to us getting to where we are today, I wanted to give a summary of a background as to what led to the cancellation of the associations of the Delvista Road Association's elections that was scheduled for March the 10th. As some of you are aware, sometime on or around on February 9th, when the election when the annual election season was already opened and in full-blown, shall I say, again, season here at Delvista, we had some problems and concerns about where the ballot box was located within the Delvista Towers office. As some of you are aware and some of you may not be aware, especially the residents on the townhouse side, is that the Delvista Towers condominium is the custodian that actually houses the management office, and that management office has takes care of the portfolio for Delvista Road. So one of the first issues that we have in terms of being fair and transparent and across the board was that, for full disclosure, I am one of the candidates in that election, as well as there are other persons who are candidates who are members of the past and the current board. However, what we found was that the management office was not meeting the expectation in terms of having the ballot box located in the lobby, where where it could be under the view of the security camera or independent third party at all time. And the material issue that affected that was that
Wait,
the voting process requires.
Paul, excuse me. My understanding from the legal is the reason we are doing a new election for DRM is that the management office did not include Elizabeth Ayud's resume, and thus that had to be. It was an incident that by legal it has to be included, and that's the reason we're doing the election. This had nothing to do with the ballot box.
So
the reason we're doing this.
So, Director Roderick, what I said I was doing, I am actually doing a background as to how we got to where we are there, and that's one. And then to respond to your question in terms of specific to the attorneys, actually they make a recommendation, and then the recommendation then is decided on. So tonight we're actually having a discussion for full transparency, and then we will all together, with your input, with my input, with the input of the residents of this community, we will decide the course that's most appropriate. But the attorneys don't decide, they make the recommendation of what the legal options are. And what I am doing as the president here, I'm laying out a timeline of events so that there can be full transparency and they can understand how we got here. Okay, thank you. So that was one of the issues that we had with the box on the 9th, and that issue was actually remedied by the Towers Board of Directors, which administers the office. Then, quite specifically, it was brought to my attention that by a resident of the townhouse that on February 18, they requested a ballot from the management office for the voting of the road for the Delvista road elections. And to summarize it, without going into the details of what the affidavits that we have from the townhouse resident was that they were giving conflicting information as to the elections of the towers and the townhouses. And then the information that was received from the management office, it included a recommendation of from whom they should vote, which, as you understand, that the management office plays an independent role, and that independent role has no business in terms of recommending whom one should vote for, whether it's for me, in full disclosure, or for any other members of this community. So that was one of the issues that came to my attention that actually merited further looking into. And I received the affidavits from the residents who was very concerned that they had that experience. In addition to that, after they had they returned to the office to actually vote, the ballot box was not in the lobby. They actually had to present the ballot to the security guard, and then the security guard, we would hope, present that to the management office, where there isn't an independent, impartial view of what happens to the ballot. So with that said, within that complaint, we discovered that the process was contaminated, that the management office did not have a clean hand in administering the elections. Following that incident, we had another incident that also another complaint that surfaced, also from another townhouse resident who received similar information in their mailbox of along with their ballot. In the envelope, they received a ballot that was already completed with a recommendation of the candidates for whom they were recommended that they should be voting for. Now, as I can understand, any reasonable person, any participant of this conference call, I'm sure you would consider it unreasonable that if an election is being administered, that the administering side should be making recommendation pro or against a candidate that includes yourself or whoever. It actually has to remain as neutral and as independent as possible. In addition to that, there have been some other complaints which I haven't until I received the signed affidavits from those residents. I'll share those additional information as time transpired, but these were the confirmed affidavits from the residents of the townhouse that we had, in addition to other anecdotal evidence. However, these are the ones that are material to the election process. Having said that, I requested a legal opinion from the association's attorney, looking on the options that was most appropriate to provide an election that was fair and transparent to members of the association. Based on that legal opinion and the guidance that was provided, we have two options. We have an option 1 and we have an option 2. Option 1, the board or the association, shall I say, would start the process from the first notice. What does that mean? At the first notice, that means that one, we would be using a entity that is actually sterile from the management office in terms of managing the ballots. However, we would start from the process in which the notification of candidacy would be reopened to all members of the community, including townhouses and towers who wish to apply. That would be first nomination, the first option number one. And the reason why, in my opinion, it merits consideration as well is that if we have already discovered, based on the evidence that we have here confirmed, that the management office, the Office of the Elections Office, has unclean hands in how they actually have been administering the elections in terms of offering recommendations or where the ballot boxes are, or incidents as to whether or not a specific candidate had timely submitted their information sheet or not for one specific candidate's information to be shared versus the other. It creates controversy, and it also places the association in a position of exposure to lawsuits and challenges if it's not done transparently. So the thought process of this board is to present the information to the community by providing all the information and in doing so for us to have a vibrant and open discussion with all inputs from both sides, and then this association, this community together, we can make a vote as to what's appropriate. The second option would be for us to vote for the second notice only. And what the second notice means would be that we would be selecting a new date for the election, of course, because the March 10th has been canceled, and then with that, the custodial will resend new ballots out to all residents, and the ballots will be completed and resubmitted to a sterile receptor, a sterile location that's independent from the management office. That's the other option that we have. So we have option one. We open the nomination process, and a nomination process that has no influence and is not administered by the management office, in which all residents, everyone is entitled to apply if they so desire, without any pros or cons.
As a candidate, correct, Paul?
As a candidate, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You're correct. Right.
Okay.
Any resident, because this is our community, any resident, so as to make sure that there's full transparency, it's fair. No one can actually say that, well, I was never given the opportunity, or I applied and this person didn't include my information, or we've already concluded that there is a problem based on the material facts that has been presented, that there is a problem with the office having clean hands. So why not why not start afresh without any baggage?
A clean slate.
A clean slate without any baggage, versus taking option two, we're taking some baggage with it, and with that baggage, it exists the possibility that there could be legal challenges, there could be feeling that there was something that wasn't transparent, or it could go either way. But why do we want to entertain that when we can actually have a clean slate starting from option one or option two? And
I can give you one reason just for consideration.
Yes,
Just
Louise.
To start, just let me throw it out. To start
Yes.
at the beginning, when everybody really did have an opportunity, and we actually always have a hard time getting people to be a candidate for this. If we start over, we are talking a great expense, all remailings, reprintings, etc. If we start from two, it's a much less expense. But of course, you all will take your vote. But I do want to throw it out. It is an expense again, and I'm not sure that it really is necessary.
Well, if I could, this is Joanne.
Of course.
You know, we're talking about an expense and wanting to move forward with a process with the with considering expense, right? But I think
Yeah.
there's a bigger, we have to consider something much bigger than that. And what we have to consider is the making sure that the election is fair. You know, that the management office doesn't have isn't biased in terms of
Okay,
the processes
Joanne, let me
that are
just
happening.
interrupt you just for a second, and I will not do it again. I just am telling you, these are accusations. There is absolutely nothing to substantiate that they did this. This is strictly allegations. Put it in the perspective. We just have to see what we each are willing to believe. Okay, I won't interrupt again.
Well, I hear what you're saying, that it's only accusations, but you have multiple people making similar statements. They've put it in writing, um, and they're not even from this building. They're from the towers, so they're
Townhomes.
completely separate and apart.
There's only one, to my knowledge.
There are two, and I shared them. I shared them with the
There are
board.
two. Okay.
There are
All right.
two.
Whatever.
There are two. So
And I
one,
think if we start, if we try to do things the right way to begin with, not have the ballot box, from a secure location, making sure that residents are directed to put the ballots in the box, that the ballots are not given to security. They should have no hand in that process. It should be, a very sterile process where, from the voters directly to the ballot box. If we do those things, we could actually save money and not have to incur the cost of correcting something that could have been done correctly to begin with. So, it's like let's not talk about an expense because we didn't put in place the processes and procedures to avoid those things. So, it's like do it right the first time.
that's a very very good points from both sides. Just to answer the point that was made by Director Louise in terms of saying that this was actually allegations. These are actually allegations that actually have been, shall I say, strongly substantiated by the fact that there are actually these owners who some of them may have been joining us, some of them may be listening to this after. They actually went on record and actually completed an affidavit of what occurred. One resident actually went as far as to forward a complaint to the state attorney's office, and actually they gave me the courtesy of just copying me on the complaint out of their fury of how they felt that the process was handled.
May I speak?
Please, Judge, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Alberto Millie, I support Joanna 100%. I think when the integrity of the whole process is in question, I believe we need to address that issue to make sure that there is integrity of the process. Integrity of the process ensures that we have the will of the members respected. And by the way, Joanne, I want to take the opportunity to apologize to you. There's been a lot of talk about civility. I wasn't aware that Mr. Berkins had made an obscene gesture when we were on the canvassing board. That is despicable, cowardly, and uncalled for. You've always been a lady. You've been honorable. You've spoken honorably and honestly. And I, for one, felt embarrassed. I didn't see it, but I was made aware by several people who were there. The attorneys were right in front of me. And I just want to tell you that I found it despicable, and I want to apologize to you. I would never let a lady be insulted that way if I had become aware of it at the time. Thank you. That's all.
I appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Paul, it's Regina.
Yes, go ahead, Director.
Can you, and so if we don't go with option one, where do we start with option two?
So option two.
We use the same candidate forms?
Yeah, I
With
was
their
actually
names and everything, the people that
yeah,
put in their names.
right. And you're actually answering the question, but actually, the question that you asked. I was
Mhm.
actually trying to pull up the records, the accounting records, which reflects what the cost is for the posting and printing. And as far as I can recall, it's not anything that is actually a major item just for the printing for that one for the first and the second notice. Considering when I say major, in versus or when you compare it with the fact that it will allow the entire association or the members to have a feeling that everyone was giving a fair opportunity to involve themselves in the elections process fairly and without any adverse influence, etc. So that's I just wanted to give my 2 cents there. In reference specifically to Director Regina's question, if we were to select option 2, what that means is that we'll use the same slate of candidates that we have for the election process, but with having new ballots mailed out and sent to a different receptor, so as to make sure that the ballots are received with and they're deposited straight into the ballot bags versus being received by a quasi unofficial impartial committee, which actually contaminates the ballots. But that process, may I add, is like it leaves open the fact that there's a thing that's called unclean hands doctrine. And what that means is that if it is found at any time that I had a bias or I had a conflict of interest, let's say, for example, if I'm presiding as the president for this meeting and I'm one of the candidates. I'm one of the candidates on this for this elections, and I never notified the association or the members of this board that if we decide to reopen the nomination process, it's something that's going to either adversely affect me or it may benefit me one way or the other. So you have a responsibility to provide that information so as to make sure that there is no contaminations. Once you've actually found that you have unclean hands, if I'm providing the information that I'm providing is conflicting, or there was an undisclosed conflict of interest, or it was found that I had a bias and I was providing advice to one side versus the other, as in this case was recommendation. And I will add that this was not the only actions that we found that was actually impactful in terms of my decision, which led to my decision to cancel the elections and consult with the attorneys law firms. There are other actions that were taken that showed the impartiality involved. For example, when the second notice was ready to be sent out and the association, the time for the association's minute needed to be selected, that time was actually selected without my input. The management office, the then management office, and to a certain extent, some members of that are still members of the office, did not reach out to me as president. Part of my responsibility as president has the purview over the agenda is to decide the dates of the meeting, of course, within the statutory guidelines and also when the meeting starts, etc. None of that information was actually shared with me. It was actually decided by the management office that the annual meetings would be at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Yes, 2 p.m. And as we are aware, or for those of you who are not aware, meetings that typically start at 2 p.m. are meetings that are meant to actually prevent associations members from actually participating in the meetings. So that was actually one of several issues that actually caused a conflict with myself and our custodial agent. So again, the choice is up to us, the board, with the recommendations from an input from our association members, is to start with a clean slate without having any issues or anyone to go forward and say, well, there was an issue that was not resolved by not having on clean hands.
Now, Paul, with the option 2, is Elizabeth's resume, how could it be included? It has to be included, correct?
So with option
We
2,
could send out, in the second mailing, we could send out all the resumes.
correct. All the resumes would be sent out. Again, as I clearly state, I am not in favor of option 2. I'm more in favor of option 1. It's better than anything, because at least now we know option 1 and 2 are better than any other options. Because at least now we know we can proceed with some degree of full transparency and open book. However, my thought process and my suggestions are that I'm clearly in a favor of option 1, but option 2, yes.
Could I ask Udi? Udi, in terms of, whether we choose option 1 or 2, would you be involved in the process to ensure that it is done like, with integrity, that the ballot box is in a secure location, that the staff, security, maintenance, administrators, admin assistant, etc., Alex, all of those staff are aware of the proper protocol for receiving ballots, that they shouldn't interfere with that they should direct, the residents to put the ballot box in there. Are you able to put in place some protocol, some processes and procedures to ensure that?
Yes, absolutely. So my first recommendation would be to separate the two associations. We need to have a box for Delvista Road Maintenance, and we need to have a box for Aventura Towers, which to me has been the biggest surprise that we're using the same box for both. So that's number 1. Number 2, working in other properties and managing other properties, key should not be left with anyone other than the attorney, who is on day of elections, is the one that comes, opens the box, takes all the envelopes out, and we go through the process of the election. So this would be my recommendation as a property manager. 2 separate boxes with the keys left with the attorneys. That means physically in the attorney's office. A lot of attorneys don't like that because it's a liability, but I'm sure we can somehow manage that with our attorneys. That's it.
Is it also possible to put a second lock in addition to, I don't know, the attorneys? Maybe, I don't know who could possibly have a second lock, but is there a way to bolt the box, so that it doesn't move?
Well, there's no need. That box is going to be located with the security front desk area. It's within the camera view at all time. There's no need for that. As long as the key is with the attorney, and as long as that box is kept locked and is at the front desk where we have security 24 hours, there's no need to go beyond that. It's not necessary.
Well, and the reason I ask is because, I am concerned about the fact that it was removed from before. So how do we ensure that that's not going to happen again?
What was removed before?
The ballot box was moved from the lobby.
Well, if the ballot box if the box is moved from the lobby, Paul, let me just finish this thought for a second.
Yes, go ahead.
If the box is moved from the lobby and there's a camera capturing whoever removed the box from the lobby,
Exactly.
then questions should be addressed to that person.
Mhm.
This is exactly the purpose that the box is under the eye of the camera in the lobby.
Okay. I think you're making a very good point, and
Moving double. Okay.
yeah, and it's reassuring that you're saying that, because again, I am concerned about some of the things that's occurred already. So if those procedures can be put in place, I think it will make everyone, comfortable with how, with progressing with the election, that the election will be fair and transparent.
I can assure you that joining the team as a property manager, the main goal was to basically communicate transparency. I know this is the #1 problem at Delvista right now, and because of that, a lot of things are taking to the next level and out of proportion for good reason. But my intention as a property manager is to make sure that everything is discovered, is revealed, is not sealed except for bids, which we're supposed to get sealed. And other than that, everything else should be pretty transparent for every member of this community. And if I fail at that, then I will resign from that position. But this is exactly why I joined at that position.
Wow. After that, your statement, Udi, I'm floored. I mean, I
Well,
any
then
of
let's go for a vote.
well, before we move to the vote, are there any other is there any other participant here who has a question, comment, or concern? So what we will do before we go into the vote, we will actually have 2 votes. One vote will be for option 1, and then after we have decided whether we want option 1 or option 2, then the next vote will be to decide whether we wish to have the ballot box placed in the lobby with a key. I like the suggestion of actually having the ballot box in the lobby with a key to the attorneys, and it's a minimal cost to attach like another lock to it. It sometimes, I remember from one of my experience or one of my I learned as a manager. Sometimes if you think about the cost, if it's gonna make your client feel better, why fight it? It's just a minimal cost to attach another lock to that box so that, God forbid, if anyone else wants to think that, well, you know what, John got with the attorneys and they rigged the election. It's a minimal cost. So we'll add another lock, and that lock we could possibly so the attorneys will, because the attorneys will have a key, and then the other keys we could actually I'm sorry. Okay. And then the other keys perhaps would it be appropriate? I'm asking the residents here, would that be appropriate that that second key be kept by management? No, not or by whom?
Yeah, like a vault, like when you get a
Right.
vault.
Double combination.
Right,
That's
the
all.
bank keeps one key and the owner keeps the other. So you have to have both to open it.
Right.
So that'll be okay.
Paul, why don't you hold the key? You're the president, and I think that
It's double combination. So my thought
Wait,
process would
with all
be,
due respect to that point, Paul, nobody who's a
was there
candidate
someone?
should hold a key.
Oh, that's a conflict of interest.
Yes, sir.
that's a good
Conflict
point.
of interest.
Very good point.
But thanks, Joanne.
So
Good point, Louise. Thank you.
right. So we're trying to Just Julian, what we're trying to figure out is who was keeping the second key, because we're trying to speculate whether the management office would be a good venue to keep the second key, or not me, of course, but no candidate, but whom?
Oh, with all due respect, nobody needs to hold a second key. This is a law firm, a prestigious law firm. They're responsible for the key, and they have a legal obligation and a fiduciary duty to the association. Nobody in the association needs to be.
I totally agree, Al.
Yeah, well, but you know what,
I agree.
Judge Julian, on most cases, I would say that most people and most attorneys are people of high characters, but unfortunately we have had situations before where some people actually put other things above their value. So I would actually strongly suggest, just for the feeling of security for the residents, that it's a minimal cost, it's nothing major for the second key. And then sorry, Armando, you have a question? Yes, and then but then it goes back to JB. Where does the second key go? What do we do with the second key? Who keeps it?
You know, Al has suggested that this law firm is most honorable. You know, this is an election for the Delvista road maintenance. I think that we can trust our law firm with the key.
Por amor, yo perdí esa dignidad. Y tú por un olorcito me quieres dejar.
So before we, so unless
Someone
we,
needs to be put on mute. There's a lot of static in the background.
please be mute all. Okay. So before we proceed, I just wanted to make sure that we actually properly ventilate the option, so that when we go for the option 2, if we're actually going to use one key on the box, we're all fine with it. Or if we're just going to have 2 keys on the box, that we feel adequately covered with it. So JB, the obstacle that we have was who would keep the second key. And the argument so far has been that we have a highly reputable law firm that would not put their repertoire to exposure by not keeping that key saved. How do you feel about that? Is that okay? What about the other participants? Will that work for you? Is that something that you feel comfy with? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, yes, Louise?
I said yes. I think the law firm one key is sufficient if they hold it.
Other participants, Gregory, Margarita, Harriet, Armando, is this something that, because when we make the decision, we want to make sure it's a decision that we make as a group. So is this something that works for you? Yes, or that otherwise, yes? Okay, so if I'm not hearing any response, I'm going to take that as that we actually append by agreeing with what the ones that are speaking, have agreed with. So the second vote will be to have the box in the lobby with 1 key and the 1 key kept at the attorney's office. So first vote will be to go for option 1 or option 2. And in option 2, the box is kept in the lobby with new ballots mailed out to all members of the association. Are we good?
Yes.
Questions, comments, concerns?
No, we're good.
Okay, thank you. Danny, I haven't heard you. Are you okay? Are you up there? Okay. All right. So I'm opening the floor for motion number 1. For the motion, which has been tabled as such, as to whether or not the Delvista Road Maintenance Board will restart the process either from a de novo option 1, or we go to a option 2. For those who are in favor of an option 1, you can show your hands by raising it by saying yes. And those who are not in favor, you don't. So I think I'm in the minority for option 1. All
One,
right.
I would go for one as well. Joanne.
Okay. Option 1, that was myself, JB. Any other participant? Any other member of the association? All right, so that's 2. Okay. All right.
Can Udi vote? Is Udi able to vote?
No.
Well, no. Well, I only he. I don't. I
No.
don't. I think he says yes.
As a property manager, I'm refrained from voting on anything. So that is strictly the board members' fiduciary responsibility.
Thank you, Udi. Okay. Right. So for yes, that was just myself and one member. Okay. All right. For option number 2.
Louise.
Okay. So that's Louise, one board member, and
Regina by phone, yes.
That's 2 board
And
members.
thank you for explaining it, Paul.
Thank
Very
you.
good presentation.
You're welcome. Okay, so that's 2 board members. What about members on the floor? General Association members?
I don't know, Paul, that the members can vote on this issue right now. I think Udi's correct.
I am tabulating a vote, 2 votes, Judge. I'm tabulating 1 for the board members and 1 for the association. So I will share it. But the one that actually deciding will be the board members.
Well, I support option number 1, and I agree with Joanna on her reasoning.
Okay. Thank you very much, Judge. Any members of the audience or association members who would like to share their concern as to whether it should be option 1 or 2? Okay. So interesting. Okay, so for option, Louise, were you keeping count with me, or was I the only one? Because like I had for option 2, I have 2 board members.
I have 2 board members for option number 2. I have 1 for option number 1 plus 2 residents.
But then for option number 2, what do you have?
I have 2 board members. You didn't request residents. I didn't get it.
Okay, yeah, because no residents, actually I had none. So
Okay.
So I just want to make sure. Okay, sorry. Let me reboot this process. Okay. Just the board members. Just the board members, because we already have the members of the association for option 1 or 2. Just for board members. Option 1. If you're in favor for option 1,
we already did.
Yea or nay. I'm just clarifying.
He wants it without members, Louise.
Yeah, just the board members.
Just the members.
Okay, we had 1, Paul Warren.
1,
we
that's
had
me.
Option 2, Regina Goldfein and Louise Rudnick. And option 2, if I recall correctly, will include the ballot box with a key given to the attorney.
So, all right. So option 2 wins. So, okay, all right. So this motion has tabled. The motion has tabled based on the numbers that we have, it will be tabled that the Delvista Road Maintenance Association will restart the process by going by option 2 to notify all members of the association with fresh new ballots that members of the association will be entitled to mail to a sterile location at Delvista Towers, with the association attorneys having the sole key to that ballot box to secure the ballots. That motion has been carried. Did I miss anything from that, Louise, Secretary Louise?
No, you did perfectly.
Thank you. So congratulations, I think, to all of us. I think we won, and democracy stands. Thank you. Any other, and it was very great to compare the inputs between that of the board members. That on the member side, we had more members, but just like well 2 versus on the board side. But interesting dynamics. Okay. Any other comments or concerns so we can move right along? Okay. Moving right along. And option number 6. Okay. Option number 6 on the update on the reconstruction of the missing association accounting records. Okay. So what this is all about is that the association is required to maintain the association accounting records for 7 years. These records specifically that I have been requesting for the last 7 years that I've been unable to get a hold of are records that specifically relates to the landscaping of Delvista Towers. Quite specifically, and I can be corrected if the information that I have does not correspond with what the other directors have. But this information that I have are for landscaping records that were missing while under the leadership of, at the time, we had President Marvin Libovich, who is now back as president of Towers. At some period, I understand, Luis, per the records of the Florida Division of Corporations, that you were at one point the president also. So
Never. I've never.
Vice president, my correction.
Never.
The vice
No.
president of Delvista Road Maintenance?
No.
Okay, well, we may need to go double check the records that we have from Delvista Road Maintenance, because it's reflecting differently.
Oh, well, I was never aware of it.
Okay. So
there were only 3 members for quite a long time. Yeah.
Okay. So these are accounting records that, per the statute, that are required to be maintained for the last 7 years. I made this first initial request on February 21st, 2020, 11 a.m. And that request was made to the then property manager, Terry, and it was copied to then Towers president, who is now still currently vice president of Delvista Road Maintenance, Carl Berkings. I requested all records to which, all contracts to which Delvista Road Maintenance is a party of those contracts. That request was made. Another request was made on March 13, 2020 at 2:28 p.m. because the information was not forthcoming with all the contracts to which Delvista Road Maintenance is a party for my review. I made a subsequent request again on March 13. On March 13, that request was rescheduled by the then property manager because she had other issues that she needed to attend to. So I made another request to then property manager on March 13, 2020 at 3:29 in the afternoon. And again, I copied the property manager. And again, what I requested were copies of the contracts to which Delvista Road Association is or was a party to for my review. Now, the general expectation is that whenever a resident makes a request for a document, that the association generally has 10 days within which to provide some sort of substantive response. However, I'm sure most of you would agree with me that as your director and as a president of the board, if I'm requesting this information for review, it should not take 10 days for me to actually wait wait to receive those documents, as of course, as the custodians, as the board of directors. A part of our job is to do our fiduciary responsibilities to make sure that we are compliant in terms of what we have. Suffice to say, those records were not forthcoming from the request that was made on the March 13th. Instead, what I was provided with on the 13th of March 2020 were blank unsigned landscape contracts for the period of 2019 for the landscape with the vendor, then True Cuts. At that point, I became aware that several of the landscaping contracts that we had were not signed. So that landscaping contract was actually under the supervision of the association's attorney. We were able to actually come up with the proper protocols to have those back contracts from that period re-signed for the period of 2020, along with the need to have the invoices, which are accounting records of the association, reviewed. Today,
Mr. President, I take
sorry,
it from
please
your,
go ahead.
Mr. President, I take it from your chronology and the recitation of the facts, and this should be a motion to reconstruct the records.
Well, what I'm getting to here is that, again, on March 4th and April 23rd, I made a request for those records which were not forthcoming, and on the request that I made on April 23rd, 2020 at 5:53 p.m., I copied Directors Carl Berkins, Regina, then Director Mariano, Secretary Luis, and the Administrative Assistant Vanessa. And it's what's instrumental, and the reason why I'm actually reciting these notations of dates and times is that in the last few days I've gotten a variety of answers from I'm not aware, I was never told, I don't know what Paul Warren is requesting. So at this point, to answer Judge Millian's questions, while it's fine that we can have another motion, we have had several motions before that the records were going to be provided. They were not provided. We had the previous property manager then finally agreeing that he would provide the records within 10 days. He's fired, he's gone. Suffice to say, where I am, to get straight to the chase, it's March the 9th, and the records that are required for the 7 years accounting retention period for the landscaping, the only records that I've been able to see and review and know that we haven't filed as we're required to have are the records for 2020 and 2019, along with the invoices. The vendor contracts, the landscaping contracts for that period have not been provided to date. And I had made similar, I will keep to Delvista Road, but some of these landscaping records were the similar records that were also requested from Delvista Towers when I did a previous records inspection. So
I understand, Mr. President, but what is the solution? What is the
I'm
solution?
frustrated at this point, Judge Millian, and I'm actually at this point I'm throwing out to the association members as that a part of this frustration we have had several motions, several requests, and the records have not been provided. And at the end of this meeting, since I don't have the records, I am putting it in the association's records that I will be turning to law enforcement. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Judge Millian.
Before we go to that step, why don't somebody make a motion to have Delvista, Road Management, and Towers reconstruct the records and provide them within 10 days. If they don't do that, then another option will be available, either a DBPR or a state attorney complaint. But before we put ourselves at risk, why doesn't the road maintenance board vote on requesting those records within 10 days.
Well, that the floor is open to the other directors, because I chronologically wanted to specify those dates and the times, because we have had so many meetings before in which answers were giving like, oh, I wasn't aware of what records were missing. I was and while the director is saying that I have documented correspondence with those directors specifically asking for those records, and we're about to end. We have actually passed by a month because of the elections cancellation our tenure on the board, which stays effective until the next election. So I'm actually sitting here, which last month was technically would have been the last, and the records have not been provided. So as we exit the door, while I understand I appreciate the suggestion, Judge, that we will have like another motion, but we have been having motions on top of motions, and the records have not been provided.
But my answer to that is give them 10 days, pass a motion from that Delvista Road Maintenance Board. If they don't provide it in 10 days, we'll refer it. The board can refer it to the state attorney's office or DBPR, and they will look at it if there's been a violation of the law.
Al, let me just step in for a moment, and Paul. I
Yes.
don't have a lot of information, but from what I understand, because I personally did look into this after Paul had complained before, there were, I can't tell you how many responses and emails from the previous manager, Terry, and from our lawyers, one after the other. I didn't retain them all, but I did have Alex show them all to me and actually had printed them out. I just didn't keep them. Those records do not exist. It had been merged for the $200 a month from the road maintenance. It had been merged with the towers. Being that the towers pays 87 point whatever of the expenses, it was not considered whatnot. Our attorney, our accountant, and whatnot talked about the unreasonable expense to go back and have all this reconstructed and changed. So I truly don't know why we are going through this again. But if you want to have a motion to reconstruct it, please, I know that we do have all the background and all these answers provided to Paul in the. That's all.
Louise, with all due respect, they're not being provided. The law requires it. If it's not been provided, it should be referred to the state attorney's office or, excuse me, or DBPR. That's simple. We need a clear answer. If those records don't exist and they were required to be provided, there's a violation of the law. It could be criminal, it could be civil through DBPR, but that's all we're asking for. You don't have to put it in writing. Put it in writing. That's all.
But it has been put in writing. It was put in writing by both the attorney and by the previous man.
Louise, forgive me.
But if you feel,
wait a minute.
If you feel that it's necessary,
do you have a letter or an email that says those records were destroyed? They don't exist.
My understanding, and I don't have is that they were commingled with the towers for a certain period of time. That is my only knowledge on it. But there were letters explaining this to Paul from both Terry and from the attorneys. That's all I know. If you feel that.
But listen, Louise, do you have an email or a letter that says this?
No, I don't. But I did see them when I requested the information from Alex. But I don't personally
Alex is not a representative of the association. He's an employee of the association. If the association's position is those, let me finish, Louise. Let me finish. If they were either destroyed or not kept correctly, it should be referred to the state attorney's office and DBPR. That's all you're saying.
And do so. If you are not happy with their answer, do so.
Okay, we'll take a vote on it and recommend that it be referred to the state attorney's office, who enforces the law, or DBPR, which enforces 718.
So, Luis, and to answer Judge Millian and Luis, this is the first time today that I'm actually hearing this version that actually that there was like some sort of a merger of the records between the Delvista Road Association and the towers. If that did happen, it would be a breach on the fiduciary responsibility, because we have the custodials means that we have a responsibility to maintain the
Paul,
record.
if you are unhappy with this, call for a vote. That's all.
So
Report it, do whatever you feel. I
if that
do not
were to
have any
happen,
more data.
that would mean a failure. Two, if that was so, I have requested these records from February of 2020, and I was giving a myriad of different responses from we have the records, we're not required to maintain the records when it's the same vendors, to well, oh, yes, we are required to have the records, but we don't have them. Oh, the records were filed away in a file that was labeled completed by Alex, and I sent them to you blank. I have no idea why they are signed. That was the previous manager. I have to refer back to Alex. So Alex's responsibility is to scan and save the records. Once he's done, we'll get back to you. End of quote. That was back in March of 2020. And now today I'm being told that those additional records are merged or no longer existent.
Okay, I would like to make a motion, just a minute. I would like to make a motion, as Al has suggested, that you request the records and they be provided within the 10 days.
So before we move on to the motion, I just wanted to address the other issue that's hanging out there because when we make these comments and
I made a motion, we have to take a vote.
Members of the association need to understand why the option was not taken as is. The statute requires us to maintain the record. The statute does not say that if one entity
Paul, I've made a motion.
pays 87% of the expenses, then we are not required to keep
Excuse me, Louise, I didn't hear it. What was your motion, dear?
I made a motion to follow Al's suggestion to request them.
It does not specifically state that, right? It states that we're supposed to maintain the association's record, and that would be a breach of the association for not maintaining the records. So it's inappropriate for us, especially when we have the townhouse residents here with us, to actually start pulling on the checkbook, because even if we collect just a penny, we have a fiduciary responsibility to the townhouse residents and to the tower residents for maintaining those records according to the statute. And I just wanted to make sure that I'm clear on that. I'm sorry, go ahead, Director Louise.
I'm saying I made a motion based on what Al had suggested, that you make a request and that it should be filled within the next 10 days. And then after that, if it is not, and there is not a satisfactory answer, you then have the options that he mentioned. Al, are you still here?
Yes, ma'am, I am. I think that would be the first thing. Rudy says this is a new day, transparency. Let me finish. We know the history of non-compliance. Make the request. If they don't comply, that history will be considered by DPPR and also by the state attorney's office if there's a law violation of destruction of records. They have the ability, they have the technology, they can investigate, and whoever ordered those records destroyed will have to answer to either DPPR or the state attorney's office. The chronology is very clear, Paul. There was a motion on the floor. I didn't hear a second.
As a chairperson, I can vote, so I will give it a second. So the motion was actually sponsored by Director Rodriguez, Louise, and second by Paul Warren. Director Regina, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Paul.
Okay. Are you on board with this motion, or what's your thoughts?
That was recommended by Mr. Millian and Louise?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so this motion has been carried by 3 directors that we will actually table. Well, we actually approve this motion that the records will be provided.
No, requested in writing to the manager.
Okay, I have already requested the records in writing.
This is a
Right.
new day.
Okay, so you'd like me to request write it in writing again, Luis?
Al, what would be the appropriate way to do it?
I think if we're starting anew and the manager is on board listening, then
Okay.
as of today, that request is made, back it up with a written request. And if it's not complied, we'll refer it to DPR. The manager has an obligation, a professional responsibility obligation to provide an answer that they don't exist, or they've been destroyed, or they're not available in any shape, form, or fashion.
Okay.
Okay.
So I will actually I will take that suggestion. Will that suffice, Director Luis?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, so can you reread the wording of that motion as you so well do?
I haven't got it officially written yet, but I make a motion that Paul Warren will request the landscaping records for the past 7 years for the Delvista Road maintenance. And as tradition and required by law, they will be provided within the 10 days.
Judge Millian, and any other comments to that? Is that
No, I think that covers it all. And Udi, are you still with us?
yes, he
I
is.
am, sir.
Okay, so
I am,
Udi's
sir.
listening to all this. He's aware, and it's a new day. Let's start from today forward. If the records are available, they will be provided. If they're not available, as Luis said, there will be a statement from the manager. And I think Udi is well aware, as an experienced manager, of what his responsibilities are. I say take a vote on it, and we go from there.
Great. Very good.
Okay. All right, so table. I'm sorry, go ahead, Udi.
No, I have nothing to say, Paul.
Thank you,
We're
Udi.
calling for a vote. We're just calling for a vote.
All right, so that was the motion sponsored by Director Rodrigue, and which I second. And Director Regina, are you there? Director Regina.
Yes, no, I'm thinking about the past. And the last time you requested was with Kenneth, is that what you said? And then he left?
Yes. Correct. Yes, Regina. Regina?
All right, and you specifically want the landscaping only, correct?
Well,
The landscaping contracts.
just I'm keeping it simple. Yes, that's it. Let's just keep it
Okay.
simple. That's it.
Okay.
Keep it simple.
Let's have a vote.
Okay. I second it.
I vote yes.
All in favor?
All in
Yes.
favor.
Yes.
All.
Carried. Okay, so the motion has been carried and approved. Okay, thank you so much. Without further ado, we'll move to the last option on the agenda under the new business section of cable upgrade for the security house. This is a very short note. This was a carryover from in January, in which we did a cable renovations on the security guard house. However, it was for a significant amount of monies, and I've gotten several different versions as to how it was approved without the board's approval, without my input.
Hello, I'm in a meeting.
Yeah, without the board's input. So I wanted to make sure that whether I'm here or not, that this was brought to the attention of the board, and we attempt to find some clarity as to how is it possible that we approve a contract to Sunshine Electrical for approximately more or less almost $10,000. It's somewhere below the threshold of the 5%. So I'm concerned, as from in my banker's days, I'm aware sometimes sometimes people lower numbers for compliance purposes. Perhaps it was not, and then added with the fact I was giving varied explanation as to how is it that this proposal became an invoice without any bids and contracts from any other parties. So I wanted to present this to the association members and also offer the opportunities for any other directors to address this, since we are legally responsible as your guardian to provide full transparency in reference to these matters. Director Louise and Regina, can you shed any lights on this this expense? Who approved it?
I have no knowledge of it.
Okay. So I recall from one of the emails exchanges.
When was this done? When was this done?
So this is.
Are you talking about the cable?
Yes, on January 28th, and in which we already paid a 30% installation of $2,250. That's just a part installation with
To
additional
upgrade the cable at the gatehouse.
Right. So we were trying
What
to
is
figure
the
out
problem with that?
who approved this before coming to the board.
I don't know. They just figured it needed to be done, I guess. I can't give you any info on it. But
Well,
it had to be done. Perhaps it was being done the same time they upgraded the cable in the towers. I don't know. You'll have to ask the office.
And I appreciate you attempting to answer, Louise. By no means, by me asking you several times, am I insinuating anything or attacking you? But it
Really,
it appears it should be concerning to us that something of this nature was actually approved by whom, and we don't, neither you know nor I know or any other board member know who approves this, because then it's happening on our watch, and we are the custodians of the association's finances. And so at the end of the day, if something happens, we're going to be the persons responsible to give an answer as to what happened and who approved this. So I'm just sharing this information here that this occurred, and I'll continue to look into it while my tenure, whether it continues or not. Even as an owner, I'll continue to actually be vigilant and ask questions. And I encourage you to do the same thing too. So with that said, this meeting, before I declare the meeting adjourned, I'm Director Regina, our new property manager, Udi.
Yes, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, before the motion, was there anything that Udi would like to say before he go, or Louis?
Yes. For the new process for the new election, Udi, are you going to be responsible for setting it up and et cetera, so that we could get this process underway?
Yeah, we're going to start the process as per the vote that was given tonight. We'll start it from the second notice. We'll send all the resumes of all candidates, and we'll make sure that this is a smooth process so we can get to voting for the board of directors of the Vista Road Maintenance.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anything else you'd like to add, Udi?
That's all.
Okay. So
anything I would like to add? No, I listened to everything that's been going on here. This is the first time that I'm on a Zoom session for the Vista Road Maintenance. All I know is that we need to put our heads together, and I'm speaking from experience of managing other properties. It's totally in the hands of the owners of a community to make the property a beautiful place to live, or to turn it into a war zone, which is what it has become for the last 2 years. And right now I'm speaking as an owner, not as a property manager, which I do have that right as well. But I'm hoping that, again, together and with the right goals in mind, and wanting to get this place to the right place, the Delvista, then we can actually get it done. That's it. There are
Yeah,
Thank you so
a
thank
much.
lot
you.
of good residents living in this community, and I believe I've been living here for 21 years. I've seen this place before. I know what it can be, and I'm trying to bring it back to where it was before. That's all.
Thank you very much, Udi. And it's very refreshing having you on board. And you have asked for the commitment for a reboot or restart, and I am willing to commit to give that to you, as I'm sure many other residents are. So thank you very much. Welcome aboard. With that, I'll turn it over to Regina for the motion to adjourn.
Yes, no, thank you all, and beautiful words of wisdom. I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I second it.
Thank you.
That said, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. And
Thank you. Good
have a
night.
good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Hi there, we just adjourned the meeting. Oh my, okay, well, let me start, all right, it started off with Paul carrying on like a lunatic. Wait.
Hello.